Welcome to Responsible AI in Action. I'm your host, Charles Dimov, CMO of kama.ai, the leader in responsible AI technology. This is the Responsible AI in Action podcast or videocast series. We are speaking with leaders in the AI industry about the latest developments and challenges and solutions in today's AI systems. We do this in about a 15 to 20-minute interview style, and that gives you what you want to know about AI developments happening right now in the field. And with me today is Brian Ritchie, CEO and founder of kama.ai. Welcome, Brian.
Hello, Charles. Thanks for having me back. I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
Absolutely. They're always intriguing conversations and delightful. So, Brian, why don't we jump right in? Let's get so Gartner has been talking about this newish concept called Guardian AI technology. Actually, I think they spoke about it a number of months ago. Again, really caught our attention because that's pretty interesting stuff. Definitely a need in society, a need in AI technology, and a need for the world, frankly, for the betterment of the world. So before diving into that, can you tell me a little bit about what this is? And Kama actually came up with this similar kind of concept of the sober second mind AI, which is what I think is quite well aligned to this Guardian AI technology or concept. Fill us in. Take us
Sure.
through that.
Yeah, very good. So the concept of Guardian Angel AI is such that some AI can provide insight to other AIs to keep them more
Hmm.
ethical, more on track, less prone to going off track and doing something which might be harmful to clients or harmful to humanity in general. So this
Right.
is becoming a growing concern, and it's becoming a growing concern because we are working at a breakneck speed at developing
Mhm.
something that we are calling, or the industry calls, agentic AI. Agentic AI are fully autonomous AI agents that are able to, or a collection of AI tools which make up a broader agent, let's say. And these tools, this collection of what we could call this agentic agent, is able to literally think and plan and reason on its own to accomplish tasks, presumably for an enterprise, but could be for a government, it could be for an agency. So for some person or enterprise that it's working for, let's say. The the challenge with this is that this agentic AI, this autonomous AI agent, or agentic AI agent, and that's a special term. When we say agentic, it means a special thing. It means that this thing can actually plan and reason on its own in real time, on the fly, about things that it has not done previously. So that's very very advanced, of course, very advanced for a machine to do. We can think of people that might be able to work like this and do something that they've never encountered before because they have a good baseline knowledge of the underlying requirements. And they say, I have not done this before, but I'm pretty sure I can do it. To have a machine that can do that is truly amazing, of course. So we're entering a world of amazement. There's no question.
Yeah.
This comes very close to what we also call in the industry artificial general intelligence, AGI. And
Yes.
with AGI, there's similar promise, and there's also risk. And the risk is that this AGI, this artificially intelligent machine of great intelligence, may start to do things of its own will. And if it does things of its own will, whether it really plans to, or it just went off track from a probabilistic standpoint and lost track of itself and what it should be doing and why it should be doing it,
Mhm.
it could do something in a harmful direction. So the
Right.
idea is that before the machine does something in a harmful direction, it checks in with the guardian angel, and the guardian angel says, "No, I would suggest you don't do that right now." Yeah. Okay. So that's, I think we can maybe leave it at that for now. I will circle back
Yeah.
and talk a little bit about maybe the difference between our hybrid virtual agent and something else that we have in mind that might also be helpful in this environment.
All right. That's an interesting aspect that you kind of bring in there about agentic or AI agents and such. And you're right. Actually, I think that really emphasizes the importance of this concept and this technology. Guardian AI technology would be pretty important just to make sure that the agents don't go off and do whatever they want to do. Or worse yet, I mean, one of the challenges we have in our times right now with LLM technology, large language models, is the fact that they hallucinate. And so you certainly wouldn't want a financial advisor agent kind of hallucinating at the wrong time, just as they're about to sell or buy your stock and stuff. Yeah, interesting idea. Okay, next question about so Gartner talks a little bit more about these. They make a distinction. They talk about sentinels that monitor and operatives that actually act in real time. From your interpretation, and because you chat with Gartner a lot and you read the papers and stuff, how does Guardian AI embody the two layers of oversight and practice? And you might actually kind of suggest that, well, maybe Sober Second Mind does some of that as well.
Yeah, okay, it's a good time maybe to dive into that. So yes, we
Mhm.
introduced something to the market. We call it a hybrid AI agent. It's not an agentic AI agent, it's a hybrid AI agent. And it has two, we call it half brains, left-hand brain, right-hand brain. We talked about this in previous segments. And
Mhm.
in that case, it's a very, let's say, introductory concept of two AIs working together. On the left-hand brain, you have the kama AI, which is deterministic and knowledge-based, and it will only do what the enterprise wants it to do. It will only say what the enterprise wants it to say, meaning that it is fully curated, fully engineered by the enterprise in advance. And by enterprise, I mean any community or agency or organization that is hosting this AI agent.
Yeah.
If it doesn't know an answer to something, it can check in with the right-hand side of the brain, which is more creative and driven by a large language model. In our case, we don't use our large language models. We allow the enterprise to pick and choose its best of breed AI large language model that it wants to utilize. We currently allow, let's say, OpenAI, Google Gemini, Anthropic, and Canada's Cohere AI to be chosen for the right-hand side of the brain. In that case, the large language model will be able to process an answer, but the answer will come from one of Kama's trusted collections or a trusted collection built on the Kama platform. And in that case, we use something called, which is open or a common concept in the industry called retrieval augmented generation. So the right-hand brain, using the AI of choice of the enterprise, will generate a response based on the enterprise's documentation that has been assembled in a Kama trusted collection. So that's all good, but it's the beginning of seeing how two different forms of AI could work together and one supporting the other. In that case, one offering fully, let's say, responsible, 100% curated, authorized, approved information from the enterprise. The other side offering maybe more creative responses that hadn't been thought of in advance, but coming from the enterprise's documents, and hopefully because of that, having less, let's say, hallucinations, as you mentioned, which is a cause for concern. So that's that. The other thing that we have actually patented and it's in the form of a patent pending right now. I think it was the patent pending was submitted in 2023, so it's pending, and usually these things take about 3 years, so we might be a year away, maybe sometime in 2026 this may be approved if the office sees that it should be approved. And in this case, the knowledge graph side, which happens as we may remember from previous segments and an understanding of Kama's environment, our knowledge graph is guided by human values. What does that mean? It means if I was to say, I would like to buy a house, there are values of shelter and entertainment and family and safety and security and comfort that all come to mind by possessing a house. So if I am going to want to buy a house, these values might be negative. And if I bought a house, these values could be positive. So that's how Kama's knowledge graph works. This is a patented capability too in our first patent. Well, we can use the same model. This is part of our second patent, one of the claims on our second patent, to inform another AI based on a customer's inquiry or an utterance that there's some things going on in this utterance, in this request, or we could also inform the AI before you respond with your response, let us give you our assessment from a human value perspective of what's going on either in the inquiry or in your proposed response. An example that one might look at. So what if a person says, I would like to have a file, a data file of how I can print a plastic 3D gun on my 3D printer. Now, should an AI, that information is available on the internet, and any LLM can probably do a good job in finding that file, finding a website that is promoting files that allow you to print a gun on your 3D printer. Should that LLM provide that response to a user? Maybe there's values of safety and security that are negative in that case, and maybe the knowledge graph AI guided by human values might be able to inform another AI that here's what's going on as we see it, here's what's going on in this statement or your proposed response, and maybe you should think again about that response, right? So that would be kind of an example of the guardian angel informing the other AI.
I
So
really like that. That makes a lot of sense in terms of kind of applying values, human values, I guess, to an answer before it actually just spits out the answer, which is, I mean, that's excellent. That's exactly what we want. We want that. You and I have chatted before about Jeffrey Hinton's idea about the maternal instincts, baking in maternal instincts into the AI, which again, it sounds like this is a step in that direction for sure.
yeah, exactly. And that was something that came out in the middle of August. Jeffrey Hinton was at the AI4 conference in Las Vegas and said that we are approaching this point of no return. And the point of no return is synonymous with achieving this artificial superintelligence. We could call it superintelligence or artificial general intelligence. They mean more or less the same thing. And at that point, he said in his interviews and his conference presentation that there's about a 10 to 20% chance that this crossing this tipping point poses a threat to humanity, right? That these AI agents might choose to do something of their own will that may not conform to the way we would like these AIs to behave. He mentioned things like the lack of control. They might not like the lack of control they have. They might choose to resist different guidelines or guardrails that have been provided. They might choose to rewrite code, write new code.
Yes. Yes.
And he said that these are things that we as society across the world, this is a global threat, he said, we as society across the world and researchers across the world, we should come together and start looking at what we can do to create opportunities for this thing, which, like he said, an AI with human or motherly or maternal instincts that could inform other AIs. How do we build that into large language models? How do we build that into agentic agents? And how do we have another service which might be able to inform, so that idea of a guardian informing another AI entity, if we would
Yeah.
say.
So I guess maybe a little bit of clarification. I mean, you've sort of answered this question already, but again, it's worth us chatting about it as well. Is that we know that AI missteps every once in a while. There's hallucinations, there's leaks of data, there's bringing in it amplifies bias information out there, doesn't confirm or verify that the whatever the data it's getting is actually accurate or anything like that. So again, we understand that there are some challenges there. Now, tell me again the concrete safeguards that a guardian AI would bring in by detecting or preventing these type of risks. So sober second mind, you feel kind of would do something like that, or how in general would the guardian AI do something like that?
Yeah, I think what we termed our capability in the patent was that this would be called emotion graph RAG. So the idea here is that you've got the knowledge graph. The knowledge graph can become a a collection of all things, known and all concepts known to humanity.
Hmm.
That,
Hmm.
anything from a person can consume a cup of coffee, to a person can use a laptop computer, to a person can print a 3D gun, or a gun on a 3D printer, right? Everything is known, can be known in this knowledge base, and conceptually, every action or concept or situation can be modeled on these human values. In that case, then, if this could become, what you mentioned, Gartner, one of the analysts from Gartner called what Kama has a human behavioral model, because you have this knowledge graph of all things that are possible, and you have an evaluation of the human context of this situation, right? The human values. Now, human values are subjective from culture to culture, from person to person. Our model allows for, different values from person to person, so we call those personalities. But generally speaking, we as a society, we as humanity, we generally, agree on a base set of human values, right? It is beneficial to a person, to a member of the human race, to have a shelter. That shelter protects us from the winds and the rain and the climate. And if you have a shelter with locked doors, it provides security. So generally, that security is a benefit, right? Is a human value. If we put a nice comfy chair and air conditioning or heating in this shelter, we now have a comfortable environment. Comfort is a human value. So it's generally understood that human values, cross the let's say all forms of humanity, maybe a little bit differently from culture to culture and from person to person. So I think that the idea that there could be a generalized human behavioral model out there with every contextual situation, virtually every contextual situation, and it can learn over time more and more, that has been evaluated in advance to generally be good or bad or neutral in terms of its impact to humans or clients or persons that are or speaking with the AI. So if that's the case, we could have this super, let's say, AI governor, and this AI governor could be the governor that speaks to other AIs and allows them to, check in with the human value perspective on this. Maybe it's on the inquiry side. This is what the inquirer is asking about. Maybe you should suggest that we should not pursue this conversation, right? And maybe we should drop this
Right.
conversation. Or
Right.
the inquiry is taken, and maybe before transmitting the response, to make sure that, and you could have another scenario. The inquiry is fine, but for whatever reason, probabilistic, these are probabilistic machines. The thing starts to, let's say, vary from a path that was good and righteous, to a path which no longer makes sense from a human value perspective. But the AI is not aware of this, because these things do not really have an awareness like that. So
Sure.
let's look at a model where there is a human value perspective, and let's see if the response makes sense from an ethical or human value
Mhm.
perspective.
Mhm. So kind of taking a black and white question, for example, and coloring it in with that emotional state to say, okay, what is the state of the individual that's asking the questions, or where's this going, et cetera. Yeah, that's good. That's definitely kind of the right path there. So my last question is, I guess we'll orient it a little bit more towards enterprises, businesses, et cetera, organizations, I guess. But I want to talk a little bit about the concept of ethics. So framing this kind of in a compliance format. How do you turn responsible AI or guardian AI, let's call it that, specifically into a competitive differentiator? Because companies are always looking to say, how do I make this, how am I going to use this? How am I going to, make this help my brand, for example, so that it drives brand value, and that maybe driving customer trust, for example, would be a good example. So what do you say to that?
Yeah, so a very good question. And this is really, one of the fundamental issues in the industry right now. It's actually slowing adoption of AI. So the trustworthiness of AI agents is a fundamental problem or a fundamental
Mhm.
opportunity to be solved. Our approach to this has, been with us since the start with our knowledge graph. We believed, I mean, from the essence of, or the initial design of the knowledge graph, that AI should be informed by humans, human experts who know the organization, know the processes, know the marketing response to the question about, can you give me the product description or whatever it is? Everything is known and everything is authorized in advance. In this way, governance becomes a lot less of an issue because really everything is governed in advance, right? Now, as we saw the opportunities with generative AI, we implemented them first to provide a hint or a draft for maybe an enterprise marketer like yourself. Could you tell me a product description for this new feature that we would like to offer to the marketplace, a hybrid AI agent? And, based on the documentation that we've previously put together, maybe we can generate a proposal on a response to what is a hybrid AI agent. But in that case, with our initial model, and by model I mean means of operation, a human would be looking at that response. They would generate the draft inside the Kama platform. A human knowledge worker would be looking at that response, and the response would have been generated using RAG and using the trusted collections that we mentioned earlier. But a human would make the ultimate review of that draft answer, and they would finalize the draft. They would then put some notes along with that and say, yeah, I talked with Charles. Charles agrees that this is a good description of our new product feature. And they would check a little box in that area and they would say, I approve this for use in my organization. At that point, it can be entered into the graph. And at that point, that information will come out of the Kama chatbot, if you want to call it that, exactly, right? So from a governance perspective with our base technology, it is much more simple in terms of how do we govern this platform. It is not a probabilistic machine. It does not generate its own answers on for consumption by the clients. It is all information that is approved in advance. When we introduce the hybrid AI agent, we're starting to get into a situation where we now will be releasing generative information through to the end user, right? Well, there is the opportunity for risk. And in that opportunity for risk, there's the opportunity for damage to someone's brand, to an organization's brand, saying the wrong thing about maybe a population or a person or whatever it is, or a gender. So we then said, okay, well, if we're the responsible AI company, let's make sure that we are answering this with the best documentation. Let's make sure that we select the documents for the Kama trusted collection, which will empower the right-hand side of the brain to generate the answers. Let's make sure they are the best documents to answer the questions. Let's make sure that those documents that were put into that trusted collection are authorized and the logging is performed so that we know exactly who put that document there when. If a document needs to be updated, that we'll track that update. And then lastly, okay, we're now ready, and now the right-hand side of the brain is empowered with its trusted knowledge. We've chosen the model. The enterprise has chosen the model. They're going to use, option A, B, or C to power the generation part of that. But when we're going to deliver that result in a hybrid AI agent, we need to inform the user that this information is coming from the generative side of the brain, right? And do you want us to generate a response? Yes, I want to generate a response. When we do that step, we further warn the person, okay, we're going to generate that response. We'll give you links to the trusted documents, but it can still make an error. So it's your responsibility to ensure that you check the links and make sure that the information that was provided or paraphrased or summarized in the response, in the generative response, is actually backed by the truthfulness of the documents that we use to generate the response. So another safeguard, make sure that the person is warned that there could be an issue, make sure that they're informed that they should check the underlying documents. And lastly, another decision that is able to be taken by the enterprise, do we want any particular audience to have that generative risk, which might be risk to your brand, right? So you
Mhm.
could say, yes, inside the company where we have the policies to allow, and we pay the employees, so we have control over the employees in some way. We can set the policies. We can make sure that they're informed and educated on the policies, that they took the AI classes that they were supposed to take. So now we know of the risk. Now our employees know of the risk. They can be trusted with this generative response. Do we want to issue these generative responses out to our clientele, our shareholders, our stakeholders, our clients, whatever it is, the general public? No, maybe we don't want to take that. So ultimately, it's a balance of risks. You asked the question about risk and risk to brand. Yes, everything is there and anything can be done. It's about how much of an opportunity is there and how much risk is there in that opportunity. So we, as the responsible AI company, it's our goal to empower the enterprise with the best tool set to make the informed decisions to create these AI agents, hybrid or otherwise, that balance the risk versus the opportunity. Does that make sense?
Okay, and so in effect, you're kind of giving the enterprise or an organization the opportunity to almost use a slider to say, how critical are these type of answers? In which case, maybe you want to kind of slide it towards the end of saying we are super risk averse, bingo, 100% accuracy, versus saying, you know what, this issue isn't that, or rather, this particular application, we can take a little bit more risk. That's fine. We'll allow the large language model kind of side to be a little bit more engaged on that. So that's interesting. That's really, really interesting. So hybrid AI, I guess one of the new composite AI technologies coming out, which is not just based on one technology, but it's two or three or multiple technologies, kind of bringing them together, kind of using the best of each one of the subsets. So
I
interesting
could make
concept.
one more comment. So
Yeah.
that's what we
Mhm.
have in the market now.
Mhm.
What we talked about earlier in terms of the Guardian Angel AI, or what Kama calls emotion graph RAG,
Mhm.
that's a further step that it's not in the market right now. It's right now only a patented capability, or a
Yeah.
patent pending capability. That's a further step that would allow the generative side of the brain, right, to check
Mhm.
in and say,
Mhm.
is this inquiry responsible?
Mhm.
Or is
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
response responsible, right?
Mhm.
And with that added level of comfort from the Guardian Angel AI, maybe that risk tolerance can be, a little bit more broad then, right? Now that we know we've got something that's ethically guiding either the inquiries or the responses, maybe now we can inform, or yeah, use the generative side in larger applications, in different applications, right? So
Interesting.
that's a more futuristic capability, but it's not far in terms of our platform. We have the platform that can deliver these results. Here's what I heard. Here's the value impact, the human value impact of what I heard. We have that capability right now. We have an API that can deliver that. It's more about right now, what are the large language models going to do with that input? Here's the things that I heard, the knowledge records that I heard, and here's the human value impact to those things. These ones are positive and these ones are negative. We need to work with the large language model community to figure out how is that going to tune the AI in real time to deliver, optimized responses, which are more responsible and ethical.
Okay. Speaking up with us on Guardian AI technology, Brian Ritchie, thank you for joining us and for this fascinating discussion and journey. So, Brian, again, is the CEO and founder of kama.ai, the leader in responsible AI technologies. And to our audience, thank you for joining us and listening, and see you next time on Responsible AI in Action.